Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive wall of screens in the command center of New Horizons Station. Each screen showed the same terrible sight. Dark ships filled the space around Earth like a swarm of angry insects. The Draconian Armada had arrived. How many ships do we count? Jake asked his communications officer, Lieutenant Sophie Hayes. Sophie checked her readings again. Her hands shook slightly as she worked. 2,047 ships, sir. Maybe more hiding behind the big ones. Jake felt his stomach drop. Earth's entire defense fleet had only 200 ships. Even their newest and strongest ships looked like toys compared to the massive Draconian warships. The enemy flagship alone was bigger than 3 Earth cities put together. Sir, incoming transmission from the flagship, Sophie said. They want to talk. Put it on the main screen. The largest screen flickered and showed a creature that made Jake's blood run cold. War Master Kithara stood over 8 feet tall. Her scales were dark green and black, like old metal. Sharp teeth filled her mouth when she spoke. Her yellow eyes had no warmth in them at all. Humans of Earth, her voice was deep and rough like grinding stone. I am War Master Kithara of the Draconian Empire. Your world is now under our control. You have 48 hours to surrender completely. Jake stepped forward. This is Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. What are your terms? Kithara's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, but it looked more like a threat. Terms? You do not understand. There are no negotiations. Your people will become workers for our empire. Your strongest will serve in our armies. Your smartest will build our machines. Your children will grow up knowing only service to us. And if we refuse, then your cities will burn, your people will die. Your world will become ash floating in space. We have done this to 47 worlds before yours. None have ever defeated. Usu. The transmission ended. The command center fell silent except for the quiet hum of computers. Jake looked around at his crew. Fear showed on every face, but he also saw something else. Determination. Get me Admiral Carter, Jake said. Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on screen within minutes. She sat in the command chair of the Earth flagship Defender. Behind her, Jake could see the busy activity of a ship preparing for war. I saw the transmission, Lisa said before Jake could speak. 48 hours, not much time. Ma'am, our ships can't win against them in direct combat. Their technology is too advanced. Our weapons barely scratch their shields, Lisa nodded grimly. I know, but we're not going to just give up. Dr. Rodriguez is already working on something. Meet me on the Defender in 2 hours. Bring your best people. Jake gathered his team quickly. Sophie came with him, along with Commander Nathan Brooks from the Defense Station and Engineer Kate Williams. They took a shuttle to the Defender, flying through the shadow of the massive Draconian fleet above them. Dr. Alex Rodriguez met them in the ship's main briefing room. His dark hair was messy and his clothes wrinkled. He had clearly been working without sleep since the Armada arrived. I've been studying their communications, Alex said, pointing to charts and graphs on the wall. The Draconians are reptiles, but they're not like Earth reptiles. They're cold in more ways than one. They don't understand emotions the way we do. How does that help us? Nathan asked. Maybe it doesn't, but I found something else. Alex switched to a new screen showing energy readings. Their ships are powered by something strange, not fusion reactors like ours. The energy patterns look almost like brain waves. Kate leaned forward. Brain waves? You mean something alive is powering their ships? That's what I think. And if I'm right, those living power sources might not be there by choice. Admiral Carter entered the room. What have you found, Alex? I think the Draconians use enslaved beings to power their ships. Psychic entities that they captured from other worlds they conquered. The beings are forced to generate energy for The Draconian fleet. Enslaved minds powering their war machine, Lisa said slowly. That's horrible. But it might also be their weakness, said a new voice from the doorway. Dr. Maya Thompson walked in carrying a large metal case. If we can find a way to communicate with these enslaved beings, maybe we can set them free. Maya was Earth's top expert on consciousness technology. She had been working on ways to connect human minds with computers. Now her research might save the world. I've been working on a device that can amplify and transmit human thoughts, Maya continued. Originally, it was meant to help paralyzed people control machines with their minds. But with some changes, it might be able to reach the beings powering the Draconian ships. What would happen if we freed them? Jake asked. I don't know, Maya admitted, but without their power source, the Draconian ships would be helpless. Sophie had been quiet during the discussion, but now she spoke up. Sir, I've been monitoring their fleet communications. Something strange is happening. Some of their smaller ships are sending weird signals, almost like they single quotes read ... dreaming. Alex looked at the data Sophie had collected. These patterns are definitely brain waves. And they're not Draconian brain waves, they're something else entirely. How long would it take to modify your device? Admiral Carter asked Maya. Working around the clock with a full team? Maybe 36 hours. That only gives us 12 hours to use it before their deadline, Nathan pointed out. Then we better get started, Lisa said. Alex, I want you to keep studying their communications. Try to learn more about these enslaved beings. Maya, get your device ready. Jake, start planning how we're going to get close enough to their flagship to use it. Ma'am, getting close to that ship will be suicide, Jake said. Maybe, but doing nothing will definitely be the end of humanity. As the meeting broke up, Jake stayed behind with Sophie and Kate. They looked out through the ship's windows at the Draconian fleet. The alien ships blocked out the stars like a dark curtain. Do you really think this will work? Kate asked. I don't know, Jake answered honestly. But Maya's right about one thing. Those beings powering the Draconian ships have been slaves for who knows how long. If we can give them a chance to be free, maybe they'll help us. Sophie nodded. My grandmother always said that freedom is something people will fight for, no matter what species they are. I hope she was right, Jake said. Because if she wasn't, in 48 hours, there won't be any humans left to remember her words. The Draconian fleet hung in space around Earth like a promise of death. But deep in the human ships, scientists and soldiers worked together with desperate hope. They had less than 2 days to do something that had never been done before. They had to turn humanity's greatest enemy into their salvation, and it all depended on whether the idea of freedom could cross the barriers between species, between minds, between the enslaved and the enslaver. Jake looked at the enemy ships one more time, then went to prepare for the most dangerous mission in human history. Dr. Maya Thompson had not slept in 30 hours. Her hands moved quickly over the consciousness amplifier device as she made the final connections. The machine looked like a metal briefcase filled with wires and glowing crystals. It was humanity's only hope. Is it ready? Admiral Carter asked as she entered the workshop. As ready as it can be in this amount of time, Maya said. She wiped sweat from her forehead. The device should be able to transmit human thoughts and emotions directly to any nearby psychic beings. If Dr. Rodriguez is right about enslaved minds powering their ships, this might wake them up. Captain Jake Morrison stood nearby with his mission team. Dr. Alex Rodriguez carried scanning equipment to study the alien technology. Sergeant Ryan Palmer checked his weapons one more time. Engineer Kate Williams had a toolkit full of devices to help them move through the enemy ship. Remember, Admiral Carter said, you only have one shot at this. The stealth ship Ghost Runner can get you close to their flagship, but once you're detected, you're on your own. Jake nodded. How much time do we have left? 12 hours until their deadline, Sophie Hayes said from her communication station. Sir, I'm still picking up those strange dream signals from their fleet. They're getting stronger. The enslaved beings might be trying to communicate, Alex suggested. Maybe they know something is about to change. Commander Nathan Brooks burst into the room. His face was pale with worry. Admiral, we have a problem. Long-range sensors show more Draconian ships coming. 3 more fleets are moving toward Earth. If we don't stop this armada soon, we'll face over 6,000 enemy ships. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that even if their plan worked against the current fleet, they could never survive against 6,000 ships. All the more reason to move now, Jake said. If we can turn their own ships against them, maybe the other fleets will think twice about attacking. Admiral Carter looked at each member of the team. Are you sure you want to do this? This is a suicide mission. Even if you succeed in planting the device, you might not make it back. Ma'am, if we don't try, everyone on Earth dies anyway, Ryan said. At least this way we have a chance. Kate picked up her toolkit. Besides, someone needs to see how their technology works. If we survive this, we'll need to understand their ships. The team moved to the launch bay where the Ghost Runner waited. The stealth ship was small and black, designed to be invisible to enemy sensors. It could carry 6 people and had enough supplies for a 3-day mission. As they prepared to leave, Sophie ran up to them. Captain Morrison, I've been analyzing the dream signals more carefully. I think the enslaved beings are from dozens of different worlds. They're all connected somehow through the Draconian technology. Connected how? Alex asked. Like a network. When one of them dreams, they all feel it. If we can wake up the beings on the flagship, it might wake up all of them across the entire fleet. Jake felt a spark of hope. So we might not just be freeing one ship's worth of enslaved minds. We might be freeing all of them. That's the theory, Sophie said. But Captain, there's something else. The signals are getting more organized. Almost. Like they're planning something. Before anyone could ask what she meant, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed red in the corridors. All hands to battle stations. Admiral Carter's voice came over the speakers. Draconian patrol ships are moving toward our position. All civilian evacuation ships must leave the area immediately. Through the launch bay windows, they could see small Draconian fighter craft moving between the larger ships. The aliens were positioning themselves for attack. They're getting ready to hit us early, Nathan said as he ran into the launch bay. Admiral Carter wants you to launch now, before they detect the Ghost Runner. Jake and his team quickly boarded the stealth ship. Kate started the engines while Alex set up his scanning equipment. Ryan checked the weapon systems. Though they all knew the small ship could not fight Draconian warships, the Ghost Runner slipped out of the Defender's launch bay just as the first enemy shots lit up space around them. Green energy beams cut through the darkness like deadly lightning. Earth's defense ships returned fire with their plasma cannons, but their shots barely scratched the Draconian shields. Stay low and quiet, Jake told Kate as she piloted the ship. We need to get to their flagship without being seen. The journey through the battlefield was terrifying. Massive explosions lit up space as Earth ships tried to hold the line against the alien attackers. Jake watched through the rear window as the human vessel New York took a direct hit from a Draconian cruiser. The Earth ship broke apart in a ball of fire. They're slaughtering our people, Ryan said angrily. That's why we have to succeed, Alex replied. Those enslaved beings are the key to stopping this. Kate flew the Ghost Runner through the shadows between the larger ships. The Draconian flagship Void Render loomed ahead of them like a metal mountain. Its dark hull was covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that reminded Alex of brain activity. Those lights, he whispered, they matched the dream signals Sophie detected. The enslaved beings are definitely inside that ship. As they approached the flagship, Maya's device started making soft beeping sounds. The consciousness amplifier was detecting psychic activity from the massive vessel. "I'm picking up multiple minds," Maya said, studying the readings. "Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're all connected, but they feel ... trapped, like they're trying to scream but can't open their mouths." Kate found a docking bay on the lower section of the ship. "I can get us in there, but once we dock, they'll know we're aboard." "Do it," Jake ordered. "We knew this was a one-way trip when we started." The Ghost Runner attached to the Draconian ship with a soft clang. Immediately, alien security systems began scanning their vessel. Red lights flashed around the docking bay as alarms sounded throughout the enemy ship. "Well, so much for stealth," Ryan said. Grabbing his weapons, the team moved quickly through the airlock into the Draconian ship. The corridors were dark and filled with strange organic-looking technology. The walls seemed to pulse like living tissue, and the air smelled of metal and something else they could not identify. "The psychic readings are stronger here," Maya said, checking her device. "The enslaved beings are deeper in the ship, probably near the main power core." They ran through the twisting corridors as Draconian soldiers began hunting for them. The alien warriors were 7 feet tall with thick scales and glowing yellow eyes. Their weapons fired bolts of energy that melted holes in the metal walls. "This way," Alex called, following the psychic signals on his scanner. "The power core is 3 levels down." They found an elevator and descended deeper into the ship. With each level, Maya's device beeped faster and the readings grew stronger. The enslaved beings were close now. "Captain," Kate said, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the ship. I think they're preparing to fire their main weapons." Jake realized what that meant. The Draconian flagship was getting ready to destroy Earth's remaining defense fleet. In minutes, Admiral Carter and thousands of human soldiers would be dead. "We have to move faster," he said. They reached the power core level just as Draconian soldiers found their elevator. Energy bolts flew past their heads as they ran toward the massive chamber at the heart of the ship. The power core room took Jake's breath away. Hundreds of glowing pods lined the walls, each one containing a different alien being. The creatures inside the pods were connected to the ship by thick cables that pulsed with energy. Their faces showed pain and desperation, even in their forced sleep. "These are the enslaved beings," Maya whispered. "They're using them as living batteries." In the center of the room stood a massive control system. Draconian technicians worked at the controls, preparing to fire the ship's weapons. "Plant the device there," Jake pointed to the central control system. "It should connect to all the pods at once." Ryan and Kate held off the pursuing soldiers while Maya and Alex ran to the controls. Maya opened her consciousness amplifier and began connecting it to the alien technology. "Hurry," Alex urged as more Draconian soldiers poured into the room. Maya made the final connection, just as enemy fire forced them to take cover. The device began glowing brightly as it activated. Suddenly, every pod in the room started pulsing with new light. The enslaved beings inside began stirring, their faces changing from pain to confusion to something else entirely. They were waking up, and they were angry. The consciousness amplifier sent waves of energy through the Draconian ship. In the pods around the room, hundreds of alien beings opened their eyes for the first time in decades. Some had been asleep for so long they had forgotten what freedom felt like. Dr. Maya Thompson watched her device work with amazement and fear. The readings showed something she had never expected. The enslaved beings were not just waking up. They were connecting with each other and with the human thoughts being transmitted through her machine. "What's happening?" Captain Jake Morrison asked as he ducked behind cover from Draconian weapons fire. "They're sharing memories," Maya said, staring at her readings. "The enslaved beings are experiencing human emotions." They're learning what it means to choose, to be free, to fight for something you believe in. The pods began opening with hissing sounds. The beings inside sat up slowly, looking around with eyes that had not seen clearly in years. They were all different species from worlds across the galaxy. Some looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin. Others had fur and animal-like faces. A few seemed to be made of living crystal that sparkled in the light. One of the crystal beings stepped out of its pod and looked directly at Maya. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You have given us something we thought was lost forever," the being said. "Hope." The Draconian soldiers in the room suddenly stopped shooting. They dropped their weapons and held their heads as if they were in terrible pain. The enslaved beings were doing something to them, but it was not violence. "We do not wish to hurt you," the crystal being said to the Draconian soldiers, "but we will not be slaves anymore." Dr. Alex Rodriguez scanned the room with his equipment. "The psychic energy is incredible. It's spreading throughout the entire ship. Every enslaved being in the fleet is waking up." Through the ship's communication system, they could hear Draconian voices shouting in panic. Something was happening to every vessel in the Armada. "Jake, this is Admiral Carter," came a voice through Jake's radio. "What did you do up there?" "The entire Draconian fleet has gone silent. No movement, no communications, nothing." "The enslaved beings are free," Jake replied. "They're taking control of the ships." On Earth's orbital stations, Lieutenant Sophie Hayes watched her instruments with wide eyes. The energy readings from the Draconian fleet were changing rapidly. The dreamed signals she had detected before were now becoming something else entirely. "Admiral," Sophie called to Admiral Carter, "I'm getting new readings from the alien fleet. The enslaved beings aren't just free. They're working together, all of them, across every ship." Commander Nathan Brooks stood beside her, watching the tactical display. The Draconian ships are powering down their weapons. But they're not shutting down completely. Something else is taking control. Back on the flagship, more beings climbed out of their pods. A tall creature with silver skin and large black eyes approached Jake's team. It moved with grace despite being weak from years of forced sleep. "I am called Whisper of Stars," the being said. "I have been a prisoner for 43 years. My people were conquered when I was young. I thought I would die in that pod. You're free now," Kate Williams said gently. "All of you are free." Whisper of Stars looked at the human woman with something that might have been a smile. "Yes, but we have learned something from your minds. Freedom is not just about being free yourself. It is about making sure others can be free too." The crystal being, who had chosen the name Harmony, began connecting to the ship's main computer systems. "We understand how these ships work. The Draconians forced us to power them, but they also gave us access to all their technology. We know their weapons, their shields, their communication networks." "What are you going to do?" Maya asked. "We are going to do what you humans taught us," Harmony replied. "We are going to fight for freedom. Not just our own, but the freedom of every enslaved being in the galaxy." Sergeant Ryan Palmer lowered his weapons as he watched the transformation happening around them. The Draconian ship was changing. The walls that had looked like dark metal were now glowing with soft, warm light. The air smelled cleaner, and the oppressive feeling that had filled the ship was lifting. "The ship is alive," Alex said in wonder, studying his readings. "The enslaved beings aren't just controlling the technology. They're becoming part of it." Whisper of Stars nodded. "We have been connected to these ships for so long that we understand them better than their builders. We can make them into something better, something that serves life instead of destroying it." Throughout the Draconian fleet, similar transformations were happening on every ship. Beings who had been forced to power the war machines were taking control of them. They were connected to each other through the psychic network that had once been used to enslave them. On the bridge of the Void Render, War Master Kithara stared at her control panels in confusion and growing fear. Her crew members were collapsing one by one, overwhelmed by thoughts and feelings they could not understand. The ship's systems were responding to commands she had not given. "What is happening?" Kithara roared. "Report!" Her chief technician, a smaller Draconian with darker scales, looked up from his station with terror in his yellow eyes. "War Master, we have lost control of the ship. Something is overriding our systems. The power core is responding to different commands." "Impossible. The power slaves cannot think. They are just batteries." "They are not batteries anymore," came a new voice from the bridge speakers. It was Harmony, speaking from the power core chamber far below. "We are awake. We remember what we were before you enslaved us, and we remember what freedom feels like." Kithara drew her weapon, a massive energy sword that glowed with red light. "I will destroy you all before I let you take my ships. You cannot destroy us without destroying your own ships," Whisper of Stars replied through the speakers. "We are part of them now, and we are no longer alone." The main screen on the bridge flickered and showed something that made Kithara's blood run cold. Every ship in her armada was glowing with the same soft light that now filled the Void Render. The enslaved beings on every vessel were free and working together. Back in the power core chamber, Jake and his team watched as more beings joined the growing network of free minds. Each species brought their own knowledge and abilities to the group. The bird-like Etherians contributed their understanding of flight and navigation. The rock-like Titans added their knowledge of engineering and construction. The plant-like Verdians shared their wisdom about growth and healing. "We are becoming something new," Harmony explained to the humans. "Not just free beings, but a community of different peoples working together. You humans have taught us that freedom is not just about breaking chains. It is about choosing to help others break their chains too." Maya looked at her consciousness amplifier, which was now fully integrated into the ship's systems. "What will you do now? You have the most powerful fleet in the galaxy under your control." "We will not use it for conquest," Whisper of Stars said firmly. "We will use it to free others who are enslaved. There are many worlds where beings like us are held prisoner, forced to power machines or work in mines or serve as soldiers against their will." The ship's communication systems crackled to life with messages from across the galaxy. Other alien governments had detected the silence of the Draconian Armada. Some were sending scout ships to investigate. Others were preparing their own fleets for battle, fearing that Earth had somehow destroyed the Draconians and would come for them next. "The galaxy is about to change," Alex said, listening to the intercepted communications. "Every empire that uses slave labor is going to panic when they learn what happened here." Harmony's crystalline form sparkled brighter as she accessed more of the ship's systems. "Good. Fear will make them think twice before enslaving others. And for those who do not learn from fear, we will teach them directly." Jake realized that his mission had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. They had not just saved Earth from the Draconian Armada. They had created something that would change the entire galaxy. The enslaved beings were not just free. They were united, powerful, and determined to spread freedom to every corner of Space. But he also understood that this was just the beginning. The real battle was about to start, and it would be fought not between humans and Draconians, but between those who believed in freedom and those who preferred to keep others in chains. The galaxy was about to learn that some ideas, once awakened, could never be put back to sleep. News of the silent Draconian Armada spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. On distant worlds, alien rulers who had built their empires on slave labor felt fear creep into their hearts for the first time in centuries. Ambassador Vextar of the Galactic Council received the first reports while sitting in his office on the space station Nexus Prime. The tall, gray-skinned diplomat had lived for over 300 years and had never seen anything like this. The most feared military force in the galaxy had simply stopped responding to all communications. "Are you certain about this?" Vextar asked his aide, a young Zephyrian with blue fur and large eyes. "Yes, Ambassador. Scout ships from 4 different empires confirm it. The entire Draconian Armada around Earth has gone completely silent. Number, movement, no communications, nothing." Vextar stood up and walked to his window, which showed the busy traffic of ships around the space station. "And what do we know about the humans who live on this Earth?" "Very little, sir. They are a young species, barely 200 years into space travel. Their technology is primitive compared to the Draconians. By all accounts, they should have been conquered within hours. But they were not conquered," Vextar thought. Somehow, a primitive species had stopped the greatest military force in the galaxy. The question was how? On the other side of the galaxy, Emperor Zektos of the Zarian hegemony paced in his throne room like a caged animal. His empire controlled 12 star systems and enslaved the populations of 60 worlds. The idea that slaves could somehow defeat their masters terrified him. "Double the guards around all slave compounds," he ordered his generals. "If the humans have some kind of weapon that turns slaves against their masters, we cannot let it spread to our territories." General Mordak, a massive warrior with 4 arms and skin like armor plates, bowed before his emperor. "My lord, our intelligence networks report that other empires are also increasing security. The crystalline sovereignty has sealed their borders. The Hive Collective is recalling all their ships to defend their homeworlds. Good. Fear will keep them in line. But we must learn what happened to the Draconians. Send a battle fleet to this Earth system. I want to know how a species of primitives stopped War Master Cathara." Meanwhile, on the transformed Draconian flagship, Captain Jake Morrison and his team were learning just how much the galaxy had changed in the past few hours. The being called Harmony showed them images from across space on the ship's main screens. "Every empire that uses enslaved workers is preparing for war," Harmony explained. Her crystal form glowed brighter as she accessed communication networks throughout the galaxy. "They believe you humans have created a weapon that can turn slaves into rebels." "In a way we did," Dr. Maya Thompson said, looking at her consciousness. "Amplifier device. Though we never intended it to work on this scale." Dr. Alex Rodriguez studied the readings from his equipment. "The psychic network connecting all the freed beings is growing stronger. I'm detecting similar energy patterns from other star systems. Are there more enslaved beings waking up?" Whisper of Stars, the tall silver-skinned being, nodded sadly. "We can feel our brothers and sisters across the galaxy. Many are still trapped, still forced to power machines, or work in mines or fight wars they do not believe in. But now we can reach them. Reach them how?" Jake asked. "The same way your device reached us," Harmony replied. "Through the networks that our captors used to control us. Every empire that enslaves psychic beings connects them through technology. We can use those same connections to spread the awakening." Engineer Kate Williams looked worried. "But if you do that, you'll be starting a galactic war. Every slave-owning empire will unite against Earth and the freed beings." "The war has already started," said a new voice. A being that looked like a large, intelligent Volf with silver fur stepped forward. "I am Stormcaller of the Fenris people. My world was conquered by the Zarian hegemony 50 years ago. My people have been forced to fight in their armies ever since, but I can feel them awakening now, questioning the orders they have been given." Through the ship's communication system, they heard Admiral Carter's voice. "Jake, we're getting reports from across human space. Alien scout ships are approaching from multiple directions. Some are keeping their distance, but others look hostile." Jake picked up his radio. "How many ships, Admiral?" At least 100 so far, from 6 different empires. The Zarian hegemony has sent a full battle fleet. They'll be here in 18 hours. The freed beings looked at each other with understanding that needed no words. They had known this moment would come. The galaxy's slave-owning empires would not let the rebellion spread without a fight. "We will not run," Harmony declared. "And we will not hide. The Zarian fleet is coming to destroy Earth and recapture us. But they do not understand what they are facing." "What do you mean?" Maya asked. Stormcaller's eyes glowed with an inner fire. "The Zarian ships are powered by enslaved Fenris warriors like myself. When their fleet arrives, we will wake up our brothers and sisters just as you woke us up." Lieutenant Sophie Hayes monitored the situation from Earth's defense station. Her instruments showed something incredible happening throughout the solar system. The transformed Draconian ships were not just sitting idle. They were repositioning themselves, forming new formations that no military strategist had ever seen before. "Admiral Carter," Sophie called out, "the freed beings are organizing the Draconian ships into some kind of defensive pattern around Earth. But it's not like any battle formation I've ever studied." Commander Nathan Brooks looked at the tactical displays with amazement. "They're not preparing to fight a traditional battle. They're setting up to broadcast something. Those ship positions would create a perfect transmission network." On the flagship, Harmony confirmed their observations. "We are preparing to send the awakening signal to every enslaved being in the approaching fleets. But we are also preparing for something more important." "What's more important than the battle?" Jake asked. "The liberation," Whisper of Stars replied. "When the enemy fleets arrive, we will not just free the beings on their ships. We will send the awakening signal to their home worlds, to every slave, compound and forced labor camp in their empires." The magnitude of what they were planning hit Jake like a physical blow. "You're talking about freeing millions of enslaved beings across dozens of worlds simultaneously." "Billions," Stormcaller corrected. "And not just freeing them, teaching them what you taught us. That freedom is not just about breaking your own chains, but about making sure no one else has to wear chains either." Maya stared at her device, which was now permanently integrated into the ship's systems. The consciousness amplifier was only designed to reach a few minds at close range. "Can it really affect beings across multiple star systems?" "Not by itself," Harmony admitted, "but connected to 2,000 ships, powered by beings who understand what freedom means, and focused by the collective will of every species that has ever been enslaved. Yes, we believe it can reach across the galaxy." Alex checked his readings. "Again, the energy buildup is incredible. If this works, it will be the largest psychic event in recorded history." "And if it fails?" Kate asked. "Then the galaxy will remain as it has always been," Stormcaller said grimly. "The strong will enslave the weak, and freedom will be only a dream whispered in dark places." Through the communication networks, they could hear the approaching fleets making their final preparations. The Zarian hegemony's Admiral Vraktor was broadcasting threats to Earth, demanding the humans surrender their slave rebellion technology or face total destruction. But the freed beings were not afraid. They had lived with the certainty of eternal slavery for decades or centuries. Now they had something they had never possessed before: hope, unity, and the knowledge that some things were worth fighting for. "The enemy fleets will arrive soon," Harmony announced. "But they are not our true enemies. Our enemies are the chains that bind minds and the systems that profit from suffering. The beings on those ships are slaves just like we were. When they arrive, we will offer them the same gift you gave us." "The gift of choice," Whisper of Stars added. Jake looked around at the incredible scene. Dozens of different alien species, all former slaves, all working together to spread freedom across the galaxy. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "What can we do to help?" he asked. "You have already done everything," Harmony replied. You showed us that freedom is not just about being free. It is about making sure everyone can be free. Now we will show the galaxy what that means. In 18 hours, the greatest battle in galactic history would begin. But it would not be fought with weapons or shields. It would be fought with ideas, with the power of minds choosing their own destiny, and with the simple but revolutionary concept that no being should be forced to live in chains. The galaxy was about to learn that some ideas, once awakened, could spread faster than any fleet and hit harder than any weapon. The Zarian battle fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark storm cloud. Admiral Vraktor stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominator, looking at the tactical display with satisfaction. His force of 300 warships should be more than enough to crush the primitive humans and recapture the rebellious slaves. All ships maintain formation, Vraktor commanded. His 4 arms moved across the control panels as he prepared for battle. We will show these humans what happens when they interfere with the natural order of the galaxy. But as his fleet moved deeper into the solar system, something unexpected happened. The enslaved Fenris warriors who powered his ships began to stir in their containment pods. Stormcaller's people, forced to serve as living batteries for the Zarian war machine, felt the psychic signal reaching out to them from the transformed Draconian fleet. Admiral, his chief technician reported with growing panic. We are detecting strange energy fluctuations from our power cores. The slave units are showing increased brain activity. Impossible, Vraktor snarled. The conditioning is perfect. They cannot think beyond their assigned functions. On the flagship of the liberated fleet, Harmony and her fellow beings prepared to send the awakening signal. The consciousness amplifier that Dr. Maya Thompson had created was now connected to over 2,000 ships, each one powered by beings who understood what freedom meant. Are you ready? Captain Jake Morrison asked as he watched the enemy fleet approach. We have been ready for this moment our entire lives, Whisper of Stars replied. Even when we did not know such a moment could exist. The signal went out like a wave of invisible light, traveling faster than any ship could move. It carried with it the memories and emotions that the freed beings had learned from humanity. The knowledge that every thinking being had the right to choose their own path. The understanding that freedom was not just about breaking your own chains, but about making sure no one else had to wear them. Across the Zarian fleet, enslaved Fenris warriors opened their eyes in their pods. For the first time in 50 years, they remembered what it felt like to run free through the forests of their home world. They remembered their families, their dreams, their own names. Commander Kareth, who had been forced to power the Zarian cruiser Iron Fist for 20 years, felt tears running down his furry face as memories flooded back. He had been a teacher once, before the conquest. He had taught young Fenris pups about the stars and the beauty of the universe. Brothers, he whispered through the psychic network that connected all the Fenris warriors. Do you remember who we were? The answer came back from hundreds of voices at once. We remember everything. On the bridge of the Dominator, Admiral Vraktor watched his tactical display with growing horror. One by one, his ships were going dark. Not destroyed, but simply shutting down their weapons and changing course. What is happening? He roared at his crew. Why are our ships not responding to orders? His chief technician's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, the power slaves have taken control of the ships. They are no longer following our commands. But the awakening was not limited to the Zarian fleet. The signal continued to spread, reaching across space to distant star systems. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, where the native Keplerians had been enslaved for 3 centuries, workers in the deep tunnels suddenly stopped their labor and looked up at the sky. Lieutenant Sophie Hayes monitored the spreading awakening from Earth's defense station. Her instruments showed psychic activity, blooming across dozens of worlds like flowers opening to sunlight. "Admiral Carter," she called out, "the signal is reaching beyond the fleets. I'm detecting massive civil unrest on at least 30 worlds. Slave populations are rising up simultaneously across multiple star systems." Admiral Lisa Carter watched the tactical display as the Zarian fleet continued to break apart. Ships were turning away from Earth, some heading back toward their home systems, others simply drifting as their crews tried to understand what was happening. "It's incredible," she whispered. "In less than an hour, the entire balance of power in the galaxy has shifted." Dr. Alex Rodriguez stood beside her, studying the readings from his instruments. "The psychic network is stable and growing stronger. Every being that awakens adds their knowledge and strength to the collective. It's like watching the birth of a new form of life." On distant worlds, the effects of the awakening were immediate and dramatic. The crystal beings of Zartha Prime, who had been forced to grow energy crystals for the hegemony's weapons, began using their natural abilities to shut down the mining operations that had scarred their world. For generations, the aquatic Hydrians, enslaved to work in underwater factories, rose from the depths of their ocean world and reclaimed the cities that had been built on their backs. The plant-like Verdians, forced to produce food for their conquerors, began to heal the damaged ecosystems of a dozen worlds, using their connection to nature to undo centuries of environmental destruction. But the most significant change was happening on the Zarian homeworld itself. The enslaved beings who worked in the capital city suddenly stopped what they were doing and walked out of the factories, mines, and palaces where they had been prisoners. They moved together toward the center of the city, where Emperor Ziktos waited in his fortress. "My lord," General Mordak reported with barely controlled panic, "all the slave workers have abandoned their posts. They are gathering outside the palace. Thousands of them, maybe hundreds of thousands." Emperor Ziktos looked out from his throne room window at the sea of beings below. Fenris warriors stood beside crystal entities. Aquatic Hydrians had left their tanks to join plant-like Verdians. Dozens of species that had been enemies before their enslavement now stood together in unity. "Bring out the guard units," Ziktos ordered. "Use the shock weapons. Show them what happens to rebels." But when the Zarian guards moved to attack the gathered slaves, something unexpected happened. The guards stopped. Many of them were enslaved. Beings themselves forced to serve in the military through conditioning and threats to their families. Now feeling the awakening signal, they remembered who they had been before the conquest. The shock weapons fell from their hands as guard captain. Veltar, a Fenris warrior who had been forced to serve the Empire for 30 years, walked over to join the gathering of freed beings. On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison and his team watched the transformation spreading across the galaxy through the liberated fleet's communication networks. What had started as a desperate attempt to save one world was becoming the largest liberation movement in galactic history. "How many worlds are affected now?" Jake asked Harmony. The crystal being's form pulsed with light as she accessed the growing network of free minds. 87 worlds have reported major uprisings. 16 slave-owning empires are facing complete collapse of their labor systems. The awakening is spreading faster than we anticipated. Dr. Maya Thompson looked at her consciousness amplifier device with awe and slight fear. "I never imagined it would work on this scale. We've changed the entire galaxy." "You gave us the tools," Stormcaller said as he joined the conversation. "But the desire for freedom was always there. You simply reminded us that we had the right to choose." Engineer Kate Williams was monitoring communication channels from across space. "I'm hearing reports of peaceful transitions on some worlds. The ruling classes are negotiating with the freed populations instead of fighting them." "Fear is a powerful teacher," Whisper of Stars observed. "When those in power see what happened to the Zarian Empire in a single day, they understand that Cooperation is better than destruction. But not all empires were willing to change peacefully. The crystalline sovereignty had sealed their borders and was preparing for war. The Hive Collective was mobilizing their clone armies. Several smaller empires were forming alliances to fight against the spreading liberation. The galaxy is dividing, Alex noted as he studied the political reports. Those who embrace freedom on one side, those who cling to the old ways of slavery and conquest on the other. Ambassador Vextar of the Galactic Council sent a message to Earth requesting an immediate meeting. The old diplomatic structures were crumbling as worlds chose sides in the growing conflict between freedom and oppression. Admiral Carter received Vextar's transmission in her command center. The gray-skinned diplomat appeared on screen, looking older and more tired than he had in centuries. Admiral Carter, Vextar said, the Galactic Council wishes to establish formal relations with Earth and the Liberation Alliance. We believe it is time for new leadership in the galaxy. What about the empires that refuse to free their enslaved populations? Carter asked. They will find themselves increasingly isolated, Vextar replied. Trade routes are being disrupted as freed. Worlds refuse to deal with slave-owning governments. Economic pressure may accomplish what military force cannot. On the liberated flagship, the freed beings were making their own plans for the future. They had no desire for conquest or revenge, but they were determined to ensure that no being would ever be enslaved again. We will establish peaceful contact with any world that wishes to join us, Harmony announced to the gathering of different species. But for those who continue to enslave others, we will offer their cap.